Okay, I'm rather excited for today's message. Yeah, we're good. I'm excited for today's message. Kind of jokingly said, thanks, Anna, for preaching in advance, but that's just God's Spirit. What the worship team was singing about trees, that analogy of the roots being spread to touch other roots so together you grow. It's all God speaking to us about the message today. Okay, we made it through 1 Corinthians 13, going characteristic by characteristic of what love is. And we're finally, after a few months, have made our way into 1 Corinthians 14. So I'm going to use that as kind of just to give a little brief overview of the letter to the saints in Corinth. But before I get into today's message, I'm going to hold you accountable for last week's message. Last week's message, I mentioned to you that I would be talking about how we can be more effective in evangelism, sharing our faith with others, and reaching out to our surrounding community. And I ended the message by asking you if you'd be willing to ask God to conform you to the passage in 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14, where it says, "Thanks be to God who always leads us in triumphal procession as we follow after Christ and we can share the knowledge of Christ everywhere we go." I asked you if you'd be willing to ask God to conform you to the truth of 2 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 14. Here's the other question. I'm going to be real specific for everyone here. Unless you're a first-time visitor, you're excused on this one. But I'm being real specific on this question here. I ended the message by asking you, would you be willing to pray for God to give you at least one person to share the knowledge of Christ? Just one person for the week to share the knowledge of Christ. Now, we're saying we have a passion to grow as a people, right? We have a passion to reach more people for Christ. We have a passion to reach our community. So I gave you a very specific way to put that passion into practice. Just to pray, God, give me one person in the week to reach for Christ. I don't know what Christian would not say yes to that prayer, to that passion. And so you don't have to respond to this, but I want to know, did you ask God for that opportunity? And can I openly share, why would a Christian not ask God to give them at least one person throughout the week to reach for Christ? Why would, if we're not about that, then there's no reason for the church to be in existence. So I wonder if you prayed and asked God for that. Added to that, I wonder, did you get a response from God? Did He give you at least one person this past week where you could spread the knowledge of your faith of Jesus Christ with that one person? I shared last week, as often is the case, we have about 20 people here. I said if everybody would ask God that and He'd give them one person, we double in size in terms of outreach. And not to mention if God gave you 2 or 3 people, that we triple and quadruple in terms of our ability to reach the world for Christ. So I put it to you, but I pray it for myself. So I asked God, I said, God, give me at least one person throughout the week to reach for Christ. And I want to share with you briefly, because I need to get into today's message. It's a guy I've been trying to reach at the gym. I mentioned his name a few times. His name is Ron. And I was talking to him this past Saturday, and he came up to me and said, Craig, I got to tell you about a tough situation that happened. He said, my best friend, I won't mention the name, he said, my best friend is 57 years old, and he worked out at Lifetime Fitness in Warrenville, where I work out. And he said, my friend went home to spend time with his daughter, and he died instantly, and he's dead. And I said, well, Ron, let me tell you how I view life and death. And we just got into a subject matter about faith. Now, I'm not just making these stories up, family. Like I asked you if you would pray and ask for one opportunity to reach someone for Christ. God gave me an opportunity because this guy's best friend died instantly. I believe if we have this passion to reach our community and this prayer to ask God for opportunities, He's going to put them everywhere we go. Now, I addressed the issue of community outreach and evangelism and sharing our faith last week, because I know that's something we talk about. But I want I want to remind you of something that is my primary passion as a pastor of this church. I've been here 10 years, and you've heard it before, and you're going to hear it again. And I want to let you know the Bible supports what I'm saying, and it's what I'm going to be preaching today. This may sound a little weird, but stick with it. My primary passion as a pastor and in ministry is actually not to reach the lost for Christ. I care about that. That's a passion. But it's not my primary passion, okay? My primary passion in Christ, and as your pastor, you know what it is. It's to live and pray and preach and teach in such a way to build you up in your faith. And I've been thinking about this all week, and I was thinking, family, all I'm standing up here and telling you is I want to be a part of you growing up in your faith. I am convinced of this, and I'm going to use today's message to support it. I am convinced that the more you grow in your faith, the more effective you will be in reaching people for Christ. So it's not that I don't care about those who are lost. You know I have a passion. I'm telling you stories all the time about trying to reach people for Christ. But my greatest passion in life, next to knowing God, you know there's nothing that can touch that, it's to build His church. It's to strengthen His church. And again, I got to get into my message, but here's a quick evidence that supports this passion I have to build the church. I've often asked groups of Christians, what's the primary spiritual gift you should desire? And many times, no matter what the setting, large, small, all points in between, oftentimes Christians don't have an answer. And it's clear, it's today's message actually. The primary gift, spiritual gift from God you should desire is the gift of prophecy. And the reason why it's the message today is prophecy simply builds the church. Now, if you are a regular attender here and you consider this your home, now that we're in 1 Corinthians 14, I want to encourage you, just take the time when you have it to read 1 Corinthians 14, because we're going to be in it for just a few weeks. Don't read it right now, okay, because I want you to listen as I preach. But just take the time to read 1 Corinthians 14, and you're going to see the Apostle Paul saying, prophecy is so the church can be built up. Over and over again, Paul just says, I want the church to be built up. I want you, family, you in Christ, strengthened in your faith. That's what today's message is all about. That's my passion, my heart, and my soul. So let me get into actual preaching from the Word. 1 Corinthians 14, verses 1 to 6. You'll see that the Apostle Paul shares my passion for building you, okay? Follow the way of love and eagerly desire gifts of the Spirit, especially prophecy. For anyone who speaks in the tongue does not speak to people but to God. Indeed, no one understands them. They utter mysteries by the Spirit. But the one who prophesies speaks to people for their strengthening, encouraging, and comfort. Anyone who speaks in the tongue edifies themselves, but the one who prophesies edifies the church. I would like every one of you to speak in tongues, but I would rather have you prophesy. The one who prophesies is greater than the one who speaks in tongues, unless someone interprets, so that the church may be edified. Now, brothers and sisters, if I come to you and speak in tongues, what good will I be to you unless I bring you some revelation of knowledge of prophecy or word of instruction? I don't have to give a lot of background about this passage because the entire message is going to unpack it. But let me be real straight and simple for you today, regardless of where you are in your faith in Jesus Christ, wondering what it's all about. Let me just tell you what the Apostle Paul is saying. Quite simply, if I stood up here in the moment right now and I start speaking in tongues, and I'm not going to ridicule because I believe God still gives the gift of tongues. For the most part, every person here would be like, all right, Pastor, that's a little weird. Keep it real, right? Okay? And then I stopped speaking in tongues and I just said, hey family, I love you very much. I hope you have a great day today. Go and be a blessing to the world. Every person here would clearly understand that. That's the entire argument Paul's making. He's saying, tongues are great. If it's a gift from God and it's used for its purpose, but you should desire to speak and well, it's really all about speaking. Speak to people in a way that they're built up. clear, plain language. If you don't know that's my heart and soul and my passion in 10 years, then you'll never know that about me. And that's what today's message is all about. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, you should eagerly seek this gift of prophecy. Now, I've already said that, so let me give it a different spin of what I'm trying to get across today. This is about God wanting you to be a certain kind of person, passionate person, desiring this gift that builds. I'm going to give a little biblical history and I'm going to give Fellowship Chapel's history so you know I'm speaking plainly. That's what Paul's talking about. Speak plainly to the people so they are encouraged and built up in their faith. And just quickly, I'm going to talk about being a type of person here, a little bit of our church history. Now, I shared this a few weeks back, but Justin wasn't here when I shared it. Now, he's here today, and he can testify that this is the truth, okay? It was October 2014. We had our annual budget meeting, and just briefly, I could tell from that meeting that we were going to face some problems. I was like, that meeting didn't go really well. I bet we're gonna have some problems at the church. So I went to lunch. Justin and I went to lunch at Culver's, and I sat across from Justin, and I said, God put on my heart the kind of people He wants at His church, and He wants people who have this desperate passion for Him, who will desperately seek after Him, who just have this hunger and thirst to know Him. Justin can testify, we had that meeting 2.5 years ago. And all Paul is really getting at is there's a type of person God desires. It's not making yourself someone who you're not. It's just having this DNA, this core makeup to know Christ, to know God, to never come to this place of complacency in the Christian walk, but to have this eager passion for the gifts of the Spirit, especially the gift of prophecy. So let's look just at 1 Corinthians 14:1. It's a simple statement. It proves what I said before. If I ask Christians the primary gift you should seek and desire, a lot of them just don't know that it's prophecy. And often we don't know why it's prophecy. That's why I want to spend the rest of my time explaining that today. But you know how I am. I just look at a simple verse that we all can say, okay, follow the way of love, sure. Eagerly desire gifts of the Spirit, okay, especially the gift of prophecy. You know me, I like to look at one verse and I want to unpack this for you, family. I want to unpack this. Follow the way of love. You say, oh, sure, Pastor, we'd be loving people. We've just gone through an entire series of 1 Corinthians 13 of what love really is. It really is not meant to be this sentimental reading at wedding ceremonies. You know, everybody reads 1 Corinthians 13. It's really meant to be the way of life, the way of marriage, the way of a church, the way of existence for the Christian, to testify to the reality of Christ to this dying world. The way of love is what Paul's saying. Follow the way of love. So first, this is 1 Corinthians chapter 14 as we know it. The follow is the reason Paul writes this entire letter to the saints in Corinth. Because if you remember, we've looked at all these chapters where he's writing to these saints. What's happening with these churches? He says you're following a particular leader and it's causing division within the churches. Well, I follow after Barnabas. I follow after Paul. I follow after this guy. He's basically writing this letter to say your following is incorrect. So if you're here today and you're thinking, I follow after Pastor Craig, so if Pastor Craig leaves the church, I'm going to leave the church. Pastor Craig say, I'll say. Paul's like, your following is incorrect. You're to follow the way of love, which means you'll follow a leader if he's constantly pointing you to Jesus Christ. That's why in 1 Corinthians 11, Paul says, follow me as I follow Christ. Your churches are dividing because you're not following correctly. Churches are splitting when they put their primary hope into a person. And that person causes division in the church, and that person leaves, and half the church leaves with him. You see, he's not just writing this out of the sky, family. He's not just pulling concepts out of nowhere and writing it. This is sound, structural, biblical argument for how church grows. Thanks, Anna, like a redwood tree, properly. Not dividing and splitting, but this proper, sound foundation. So, family, I can say, follow me